Hi everybody, Matt and Paul here from Fiduciary Wealth here in sunny Gibraltar, and another video for you today. This one is very topical. A lot of you have probably seen the recent agreement between Gibraltar, Spain, the EU, and the UK regarding the border between Gibraltar and Spain. And um, the agreement is that Gibraltar will be, the border will be part of Schengen for kind of free movement. So a lot of people talking about this obviously generated a lot of interest in Gibraltar, and in a lot of people's opinion made Gibraltar a more attractive relocation destination. Paul, what are your thoughts on this and what's happening?
Well, I mean, they still haven't done the legal text, but it would appear that it's a very balanced, good agreement, treaty, whatever you want to call it, for all the parties concerned. I mean, there is a lot of misunderstanding regarding Schengen, and Gibraltar is not joining Schengen. Gibraltar has been given, my understanding is, unfettered access to the Schengen zone, and they've agreed a bespoke arrangement for Gibraltar, which enables Gibraltar to access Schengen without necessarily be a part of Schengen, if it makes any sense. So the agreement that was, that went public on the 11th of June talks about dual Gibraltar Schengen border checks. Yeah. So it means that at Gibraltar port and airport, there will be both a Gibraltar passport control followed by a Schengen passport control, which will be carried out by Spain, being the closest European country. So at Gibraltar ports and at Gibraltar airports, it means that once you are in Gibraltar, you can travel freely within the Schengen zone because you already entered Schengen, yeah? As if you've entered Italy or Greece or any other country within the European Union stroke Schengen. You will be able to travel. For those who are tax resident in Gibraltar, I think the advantage of that is that, and that's why the land border will essentially will be done away with, will be removed, because you're part of Schengen. There's no need for passport controls in the same manner that you cross a bridge from Portugal to Spain. You just drive past, and on very few occasions they might stop you, but that's rarely the case. So if you're a tax resident in Gibraltar, before you had, the red card, the burgundy card, the blue card, that's all ended. There will be, you're a tax resident in Gibraltar, you have unfettered access to Schengen. It's great because for tax residents in Gibraltar, one, it kind of undoes the or reverses the Brexit, in so far as now Brits can only spend 90 out of 180 days in Schengen. And now I think in practice you could spend less than 180 days, but you could do it consecutively. And then you travel freely through Schengen without the need to go through any having your passport stamped, and have to join lengthy queues, which I've experienced firsthand when I arrived at Athens, and they shout, European nationals, British nationals, and it's like they remind you that you're a third party national and you have to queue. So that's all finished. I think it's a great story for Gibraltar that, it's it posed an existential threat because Gibraltar depends on a free moving and a fluid border. I think they've addressed that issue. We have unfettered access to Schengen, which is fantastic, in the European Union. There's free movement of goods. Yes, there's going to be a tax, but there's free movement. So I think, all in all, I think a really positive agreement. Now it has to be The legal text has to be drafted. It has to be agreed by the signatories, but it would appear on the face of it, without having looked at the detail. The devil is always in the detail, but it looks like it's the best treaty agreement that they could have reached given the circumstances. And in fairness to all the parties in the negotiation, it was, the politics was almost non-existent. They tried to find an agreement which was of benefit to all parties concerned. I think it gives Gibraltar the opportunity to be an even stronger economy for the local surrounding area and the real engine of all the surrounding towns and cities, because it will create that ability for people to move freely. I think in the same way when you construct railway lines and you create motorways, there's more economic activity. This will be no different. I think Gibraltar could potentially become the Monaco of Southern Europe quite easily, because it's going to create a space and an opportunity for shared prosperity and, having no border. Surprisingly, a lot of people are against the idea of having no border, but I think, there's no such thing as no border, but it will be borderless to a very large extent. I think is a really big plus. Um, so it will attract a lot of interest. I think, Matt, we're already seeing that the number of inquiries normally is very quiet during the summer months, but there seems to be another spate of activity. We're having inquiries coming through every single day. We had one, it's not just private clients considering moving to Gibraltar, but we've had professionals in China and in Turkey wanting to reach out to see if we can strike some kind of an agreement, because they've got clients who could potentially be interested in becoming tax resident in Gibraltar. The only downside of this, at least for non-British nationals, that unless you're going to become self-employed and create a business here with substance and roots, not a digital nomad worker or providing services to a company that's based in the UK or somewhere else, but a proper established and run company from Gibraltar, unless that is the route to market that individuals want, then unfortunately for ultra high net worths, the only viable option is category 2 individual, which means that you have to have net assets in excess of 2 million. You have to buy a property locally. You can't have been a tax resident for prior 5 years. You have to take out prior medical insurance. The house has to be a qualifying property, either a purchase or a rental agreement, but of a qualifying property. It has to be sufficient to house your family. The usual conditions attached to category 2, but then potentially, if you've got global business interests, it could perhaps be structured in a more tax efficient manner and limit your taxation on a global basis. So for very wealthy individuals looking at Gibraltar, now that we've got unfettered access to Schengen, category 2 is really the most viable route, with the caveat that if they establish a proper business in Gibraltar, run out of Gibraltar with substance and roots, then that could be an alternative. But failing that, then Cat 2 is the only viable route for non-UK nationals to establish a base. But, it could be an incredible positive story moving forward. Once this is implemented and the border is done away with, and there's free movement of goods and people, I think the opportunities are endless. I think it will attract inward investment into Gibraltar. It will create jobs again. We mentioned in prior videos, the importance of having stability and certainty, and I think it will bring certainty, stability, and it'll create an opportunity to expand this economy for the benefit of everyone who lives and for those who work, not necessarily live here.
Yeah, but from my point of view, it makes Gibraltar a bit of a best of both worlds, really, doesn't it? Because you have a lot of people want to come to Gibraltar for maybe the familiarity aspect, we sometimes call it, the language, the currency, the legal structure, things like that. Obviously, people want to come to Gibraltar from a taxation point of view. Obviously, there are things like the climate, but that shared with the rest of Europe. But you get those kind of benefits that I talked about, plus access to the EU without restrictions. And yes, suddenly I mean, Gibraltar's always been a very attractive place, but now it really adds that extra kind of element that, from my experience, there was always maybe, and we've had potential clients before who, there's been talk of this agreement. I mean, they've been in talks for multiple years, but this has maybe been the one thing that's put them off. But now they're thinking, wow, Gibraltar's the place to be. And as you say, Paul, I think maybe historically, from our experiences, the majority of Brits coming in here as well. But with this access to the EU now, it suddenly makes it really more attractive to kind of non-EU individuals who are looking to that access, which, category two is the likely route to them, but there's certain advantages via that as well. So, yeah, great deal all around.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we need to make very clear is that the fact that you've got unfettered access to the Schengen zone doesn't mean you pretend to be tax resident here, but you actually live in Marbella, for argument's sake,
Yeah.
because that doesn't work. I mean, Gibraltar has a tax agreement with Spain. The agreement is a political agreement because it goes far and beyond the standard OECD model for double taxation agreements. It's, the conditions are very tough, and there's going to be more cooperation on tax. So if anyone is thinking of a fudge, it didn't work a few years ago, it's less likely to work now. This is for individuals who legitimately want to establish their tax residence here and do things properly. And yes, you could have a second home in Spain, but you have to be mindful of what could potentially trigger tax residency in Spain. They can open an investigation at the click of a button. Spain doesn't hold back when it comes to opening up tax investigation, particularly against expats.
Yeah.
So, don't be silly. You can come here. You can have the best of both worlds, as you rightly said. You have unfettered access to the EU. You could travel extensively, but be mindful of the number of days that you have to stay in Gibraltar, and be mindful of any third countries you travel through, that you're not overextending your stay, and therefore open to a challenge from the tax authorities in that country. But what an incredibly positive story for Gibraltar and the surrounding area, that there's an agreement now in place, the certainty, and with it, there's going to be, I think, a huge influx of British nationals and other nationals looking to establish their residency here. I think prices at the top end of the range, and I think, they're hovering around 10,000 per square meter, is going to go even higher, in my opinion. Maybe at the bottom end, people will move to Spain and prices come down, but certainly at the high end is going to drive prices even higher. I think all round is going to be really positive. It'll drive inward investment, and yeah, and with a bit of imagination and goodwill, um, Gibraltar has the infrastructure and the financial center and the know-how and the expertise to be able to drive the economy, but doesn't have the land which Spain has. So if everyone is pragmatic, there could be some exciting opportunities moving forward. And, if anyone is watching this video, you should really, 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 if you have a list of 3 countries you want to move to, think about Gibraltar as another opportunity and another choice, because it really does tick a lot of boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exciting times, as you say, Paul. And if you are watching this video and Gibraltar residency does appeal to you, then feel free to reach out to Paul and I. I was at Fiduciary Wealth, and we can discuss that with you and take you through the process. So feel free to contact us. Otherwise, continue to watch the videos and please subscribe, like, share, leave any comments that you might have for us as well. And we will see you on another video very shortly. For now, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.